Tulsi Gabbard sits down with the host and Patrick Bet-David on the Patrick Bet-David podcast, and they talk about the neocons, and Tulsi Gabbard calls out the Republican neocons who are going to hurt America. Let's watch.
I'm of the capacity of we got to do something. What do you think from American First strategy? If you're part of this administration, what should we be funding? Where should our priorities be as an American?
I think that the dialogue is too often, are you an isolationist or are you an interventionist? I think both are the wrong answer. Also, the wrong answer is like, oh my gosh, there's something bad happening in the world. We have to do something. Well, what if the something you're thinking about is actually going to make things worse, not better? Sometimes the answer is not to just do something to make ourselves feel better, to say, well, gosh, some action needs to be taken. No, we've got to actually think about what are the different options? What are the courses of action? What serves the interest of our country? What serves the interest of our security? What will actually help in this situation versus what's going to make it worse? All of this increased funding, and this is what makes me angry about this administration's position and the neocons in both parties who continue to fuel this proxy war with Russia, that the Biden administration is a regime change war against Russia. The Ukrainian people and their lives are the fodder in this war. If they really were compassionate and cared about the Ukrainian people, they would have jumped at the opportunity to lead brokering a peace treaty between these two countries as early and as quickly as possible. Not only did they not do that, they directly stopped attempts being made by other countries to bring both Russia and Ukraine to the table to actually have these negotiations. I saw it back then, before the war started, after it started. And yes, Russia and Putin was wrong to invade Ukraine. There's no question about that. But I always knew that the only way this ends is if there is a negotiated end to the war. One where both Russia and Ukraine are not necessarily happy with how it all ends, but more lives are saved. The fact that the Biden administration has blocked those attempts to bring about an end to this war over and over and over again should send a strong message about whose interests they really have at heart.
As you guys can see, taking some subtle shots at Joe Biden makes sense. Listen, the Minsk Accord, there's been peace treaties in the past. It was always on Ukraine's behalf that there was never an agreement to be made. It was always them who wanted more, who wanted NATO. And so because of that, Russia and Ukraine inevitably would go to war. This is something that we couldn't have really interfered in the U.S. the way I see it. And from my understanding, the way that we did interfere was to help and support Ukraine, which also escalated the tension between Russia and Ukraine. What do you guys think? I'm curious. Maybe I got this wrong, but from my research into it, it seems like the U.S. did not help. Adam Kinzinger got with a whole bunch of people to say that we need to support, get behind Ukraine, help them out. This was in 2012. In 2012 also, you start to notice that there's peace treaties going on, and Ukraine just didn't want to sign them. And the reason for that's being speculated from people that were involved or talking with the Ukrainian military was because they wanted to start building up their army, start building up their military in preparation for war with Russia.
It's not the people of Ukraine. So the more money that's being poured at this, like I said, they're just saying, well, we got to stop Ukraine from losing. None of them can define what does a win in Ukraine look like. If you asked different leaders in Washington, they'll say, oh, well, a win is Ukraine has all of their sovereign territory restored, including Crimea. There is no real world where that happens. That's just not, that's a fantasy. Okay, well, maybe it's, I spoke to someone the other day. She's like, well, don't you want to see Ukraine win? And I said, what does winning look like? And she said, well, it puts them in a stronger position of leverage to be able to negotiate an end to the war. Well, that stronger position has come and gone. So now what does a win look like? Well, it just means not losing. So as we look through history, there are different examples of this. Are we, the United States, do we really want to be in a position to continue to fund a war of attrition where Russia has far more military hardware, far more bodies to fuel their military, and a military-industrial complex that can reconstitute their losses far more quickly than our government even estimated that they would be able to. So are we, the American people, signing up for a forever war to stop Ukraine from quote-unquote losing? Is that how we want to spend $60 billion? I have not heard from a single one of these people in Congress a cohesive argument for how that $60 billion will achieve a very specific quote-unquote win. I've not heard a single person. I would respect an argument that was backed by substance, that could show us, make the case to the American people, why your money, our money, should go towards something that we can't even account for with no definable positive outcome versus going and securing our border. An issue that really does pose a direct national security threat for us right now.
So that's Ukraine. What about Israel,
But
Iran,
my
Gaza?
point is,
Yeah.
because you started the question, intervention
Yeah.
versus isolationist. I am neither. I'm a realist, and I am America first. I'm the American people first. So as we look at, because there will always be different challenges that pop up in different parts of the world. That's the reality of the world we live in. JFK talked about peace that's not some, fantasy.
Okay, but why did she dodge the Israel question like that? Does anybody else find that a little weird? I don't know.
See that, okay, kumbaya, we can all dance around and everything. It is a constant effort that requires work, and it requires strength and leadership. So with each of these different examples, we have to be able to make those decisions based, again, on that context of what is in the best interest of our security and the American people, and how will our course of action, whether it be to get involved or to not get involved, or to be able to provide some support, but perhaps not our entire military, those decisions have to be made within that context of knowing exactly what we're doing, why we're doing it, and not doing it carelessly to say, well, there's a bad guy, we got to go do something bad to the bad guy. We've seen so many times how those short-sighted emotional decisions actually end up harming our country, actually end up harming our economy, actually end up harming our security, which is where, again, we've got to see the world for what it is. We've got to understand our own limitations as a country. We cannot go, nor should we try to go save everyone in the world. We cannot and should not be the world's police. We cannot and should not try to build little Americas around the world. We need to engage with leaders in other countries. We need to be a good partner. We need to exercise and be an example of freedom and democracy right here at home, and recognize that the best way to build relationships is not by first turning towards economic warfare through sanctions or dropping bombs. It's about finding those areas of mutual and shared common interest so that you can work out those differences and those problems without immediately and constantly resorting to war.
I think she did a great job of saying the truth, saying what needs to be heard by both the neocons and the liberal warmongering Democrats. Anyways, guys, that's everything for today. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.